You're talking about a young team that's going to get younger if these prospects come up and become a big part of this. Do they need to go out and add some adults to the room?
Yeah, there's no question about it. I mean, you need it. When you look at even like the 2013 team, right? There wasn't like individually, they weren't stars, but they were adults, that went after their job and they went out in a professional way. When you look at this rotation, guys like Bayo, Houck, and Crawford, they need a guy that is so intense with his approach every fifth day. That is, just the way he goes about his job. This lineup needs a JD Martinez like it got in 2018. That is just comes in here in the cage, is so precise in his daily work and how he goes about his job. Like, these are the things that this team needs. They have a lot of great young talent, but now they need some old veterans in the staff, in the pen, in this lineup to kind of gather these guys around and just take them to another level.
All right, 3 of the 4 teams that have made it to the League Championship Series are in the top 5 payrolls in Major League Baseball. I think it would be the top 3 payrolls if the Dodgers were paying Ohtani some of his money now, but they're not paying him for a long, long time, as we know. The Guardians and the Outliers, we'll get to them, but clearly there is a correlation between teams who spend money on talent, teams who go get the adults, the big free agents that can come in and help a team. Those teams are more likely to make the playoffs, right? I mean, it's pretty straightforward, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I do think it's kind of like where you are as an organization, right? Like, you can, in a rebuild, mask it and go sign some players, and I don't think you win a World Series. But when your team is ready, as the Dodgers and the Phillies and the Yankees, and the Mets already bought in, so they kind of kept it going a little bit. I think it's up to you to spend. You got to get back into the top 5 in payroll. You have to, and they've got some money coming off the payroll. They've been under this luxury tax. You've got young players under control for the next 3 years pre-arbitration, 6 years really, some of them. So it's time to supplement that now with some high-priced free agents. I know it's uncomfortable, but that's how this organization has really gone about it and won.
There's been a lot of talk about trading some of the prospect capital, right? That there's surplus position players coming up through the minors. But it's not one or the other, is it? You can't address everything through trades, can you? You still have to dip into free agency.
Yeah, and that's why I was funny. I asked Breslow, like, is there an order to it? Like, do you dive into free agency for a starting pitcher and then just, Burns wants 10 years and you can't match $300 million, So with that, you then kind of take it to, okay, let's figure out the trade market. Let's address our starting line of pitching through the trade market. So, I don't know which happens first, but I think it is a combination of both. Whether it is sign that big-time free agent, trade for that right-handed bat, it's got to be one or the other. You don't want to just unload everything and try to stay under a payroll, but you don't want to trade away every prospect either and have nothing left.
By the way, the Dogs are well-trained. As soon as you say Corbin Burns, they start yapping. They want Corbin Burns, clearly. You have probably heard you say that name a few times.
Yeah, they do. They walk around in little Corbin Burns jerseys. One's got a Max Fried jersey, one's got a Corbin Burns jersey. Yeah, that's how it works.
Hey, you are such a great follow on Twitter during the playoffs. On a particularly good 3-day run the other day, you wanted Tanner Scott, Teoscar Hernandez, and Fernando Tatis Jr. Now, one's under contract, but let's say you could get him anyway. That's according to Sportac, I looked it up, it's $438.7 million that you'd be committing to those 3.
Perfect. Perfect. I don't mind it one bit. Like, think about Tatis in between Devers and Casas. He's got, 10 years, $300 million. That's why I was hoping they would win it. Maybe finally win a World Series and then be like, okay, now we've got problems. We've got to trade guys away. Tanner Scott's a no-brainer to me. And it sounds, I keep hearing his name. I heard at the end of the season around Fenway Park, just as far as like, we need a lefty that it doesn't rely on location to get guys out. We need a lefty that has stuff, that can actually make a mistake, and just his stuff is so good he blows you away. So these are the types of guys, and Teoscar's a guy that, right-handed bat, outfield, DH, whatever it may be. He wanted to be here in the offseason. Maybe you weren't ready then. Maybe you're ready now.
Teoscar Hernandez, we heard so much about last offseason, right? That his interest to come here. We spent the whole winter talking about Jordan Montgomery. I don't know if they were ever really on Imanaga or Yamamoto, probably not, because that got so crazy. But a lot of the guys that we know they were interested in wound up being pretty impactful players. Do you think that kind of shapes Breslow going into this winter? Like, he kind of identified the right guy. He just didn't get him.
Yeah, and I think that comes to the biggest issue, I think, this offseason, TC, and I'm sure you've heard it before, and I think I've heard it enough from many different people to believe it. Breslow's job is to convince John Henry that he needs to spend on a particular guy. He needs to convince him that he needs to make this trade. This is the one that's going to put us over the top or whatever. Like, that's the GM's job here at Fenway Park. Theo could do it. Dabrowski could do it. Charrington Bloom, I don't think so. Can Breslow do it? And you're right. He's identified some guys, some impact guys that they didn't end up getting. But he's also had a run here of the sale trade with Grissom, the deadline, the guys he brought in. So that's not exactly on his side, at least Grissom for the current time, right? Who knows what his long term. But he has to convince John that it's time to do it. Maybe Theo Epstein is sitting on his shoulder helping him out. I don't know. But hopefully they can get that done.
Max Fried seems like a perfect fit, doesn't he? I mean, I know Corbin Burns is Corbin Burns. Anybody who gets Corbin Burns is going to get a stud. We know that. But Max Fried just seems like the kind of guy that this pitching group that we've heard so much about would dig into and just, I don't want to say take to the next level because he's already really good. But that's the kind of guy they need, right?
Yeah, huge upside, right? I mean, he's had some health issues, but throw that out at this point because who doesn't? Like the Lucas Giolito thing should tell you everything you need to know. The most durable starter in all of baseball couldn't get to spring training. So, Fried, it's all about upside. It's all about what he can do every fifth day when he takes the ball. And by the way, it's nice to have a lefty, when you roll into Fenway Park to maybe Yankee Stadium rather, to line him up there. So, yeah, you're right. He's the perfect fit. Like, he's the guy that it'd be nice if you can get him. Of course, Burns is another one. Flaherty's one I'm not really sure about, right? The track record is he's been really good this year. I don't know, do you sign him? He goes back to what he was the previous three, which wasn't good, to the point where the Orioles had to throw him away in the bullpen for the playoffs. So, but those two guys obviously on top of the list.
Well, and again, it's not to talk money, but the problem is he has this really good year, right? So now you're going to buy at an all-time high, right? Like a year ago, I might have been in on Jack Flaherty because you probably would have gotten him on a discount, or a year and a half ago at the deadline, right? But he's not that guy anymore, and he's pitching the playoffs, and he's probably just going to rise his money up as it goes. If you look at those guys, and here's what I keep coming back to. If you Max Fried, Corbin Burns, whoever it is, if you could address your starting pitching needs through free agency, you could really do something by acquiring relief help with some of those trades, right? If you didn't have to bundle up all your prospects to go get a number one starter, it's a lot easier to get bullpen help, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And the other thing, too, is I love depth, right? We've seen it before. It takes more than a 26-man roster and sometimes more than a 40-man roster to get through a season. So if you were to throw some money at, say, like you said, like a Max Fried and a Tanner Scott, which they have. Now all of a sudden it's like, okay, what else can we fit? What else are we looking for? Can we make a major trade? And it's just like thinking outside the box at this great young AAA pitching prospect. You know what I mean? Like for Abreu or whoever it might be in a package, and all of a sudden you replenish. You got a 6 starter sitting down in AAA that could be lights out in years to come. So there's so much flexibility with what this team can do with money and prospects, because they're all big leaguers, young big leaguers, and AAA prospects, that there's a huge offseason with a lot of big decisions to make.